Welcome back to the SMA Connect. Our guest, the UNDP country representative in Uganda, Madam Elsie Attafuah, and Franc Kamugyisha, a very enterprising young guy who has really tried his best to make the best out of this COVID pandemic. We are discussing the opportunities or what can actually be done by the youth during these COVID times and post-COVID times. There's a lot of support out there that can actually be given, or support that is actually ready to come to the youth. And that's what we're trying to discuss, trying to see how we can get these opportunities to the youth.
Youth can create their own jobs. They can create other jobs for other people, just like we talked about Arthur a moment ago, employing 23 people. But youth can be able to help us create the future that we want. And it's a very important thing for us to talk about now in the COVID era, because I think COVID has disrupted the way we get it through. And for us, I mean, as UNDP, one of the things that we have done that has been very fundamental in recent times is the launch of an e-commerce platform with Jumia, where we are bringing young people into the value chain, and where we are connecting young men, women who are sitting in the markets in Nakawa, Nakasero, and Kalewe to the vendor, to the consumer online on Jumia. And what does it tell us? Creating more jobs. So the ability to create, the ability to collaborate, young people, then we can't underestimate that. Now, if Martha trains other people, what is Martha telling us? The power to collaborate amongst young people is very, very powerful. We have, for example, the Youth Connect, which UNDP has been spearheading, not only here in Uganda, but in Africa as a whole. And that power of connection among young people to create themselves, to do things differently, is something that I really wanted to talk about. The third thing that I wanted to talk about is the power of young people, and why we have to invest in youth-led businesses is the power to connect knowledge. Today, comrade, we are all connecting to knowledge online. Young people all over the country are connecting to hear about what we can do differently. And the fact that they have agility and the willingness and the confidence to connect to resources, human, financial, is something that we cannot underestimate. So for me, the reason why we have to invest in young people is that they are the backbone of many economies in our regions, in our countries. In fact, Uganda, for example, is the second youngest population in Africa after Niger. Now, there is no way we can talk about our vision 2040 without investing in young people. So whilst I try to kind of bring this to some conclusion, I just wanted to highlight a point that has burdened me, comrade, over some time now. I am a Ghanaian, and I live here in Uganda. I see so much potential here that somebody sitting in Ghana should be able to go on their phone and be able to say, I want milk, and buy it. Yet we are importing milk from other countries back for Africa, but Uganda has milk. So a young person we can facilitate a process where young people here in Uganda, in Nigeria, in Sierra Leone, in South Africa, can connect to each other and build a business process that is going to be as powerful as never before. So in many ways, we believe very strongly that this is the future of humanity. Youth are the future for Africa. And in a post-COVID era, as we build back better, and friends, when we say build back better, it's not just a phrase. It means that we can't continue to do the things that we used to do in the past. We have to do things differently. Selling online, communicating online, doing different things that we have never done before. And therefore, for us, the youth is the way. As a UN, there's a UN youth strategy. UNEP itself has a youth strategy. There's a lot. I'm sure we get into some of the details later on, but certainly the youth is the future.
Thank you so much, Elsie. I mean, that's a very nice preamble, because the youth are the future. The youth need to innovate. The youth need to do business differently, which brings me now to Franc, because you see, Franc is one of those youth who has really maximized these last few months or few weeks of the COVID pandemic in Uganda. Franc, just to come to you, tell me your story. Tell me your story, what you were doing 3 months ago and what you're doing now and why you had to do that.
Thank you so much, Tony, and thank you so much, Elsie, for the wonderful presentation. I think, like I told you at the beginning, I'm called Franc Kamugyisha, and I'm founder and CEO EcoPlastyle. So EcoPlast is a social enterprise that works with slum dwellers to collect plastics. And so now the whole idea now started coming of making reusable masks for commercial sale. And I engaged with partners, of course, at the University of Queensland in Australia. We started on research because I wanted to make sure that I come up with a mask that can be used even in hospitals. So we went ahead to make research on how we can make a reusable mask having activated carbon fibers and then having copper oxide nanoparticles. And then research went on very well, and we actually made our first products and took them to the market, and we've been now able to produce over 5,000 pieces of masks and sold them to the market. And
hold on, Frank. How
yes,
has
please.
been?
Yes,
I mean, have you sold all of them?
Oh yeah, sure. The 5,000 pieces have been sold so far, and I really have overwhelming orders.
And you've gone back to make more. So
yeah,
you're
sure.
so you're the guys who jumped onto it like native in the early phases.
Yeah, actually today I had quite you see me trying to like switch off the phone. I have quite a number of actually huge volumes of calls coming into me, like making orders and stuff like that. So like we've really seen ourselves try to switch very fast from what we are doing to now providing a solution to COVID-19. But of course, it doesn't mean that we really stopped our operations as EcoPlastyle. The recycling project still is ongoing. And of course, after COVID-19, our plan is to proceed with the two projects because we see there's a huge opportunity. We really do not know when the COVID-19 is really going to go. So we have to keep producing masks as well as moving the other projects ahead, like you said, Tony. Thank you so much.
Right, but let me ask you something, because now again this comes back to the idea of employment. How many people are you employing for this project so far?
Oh yeah, sure. Currently, we have I have a team of 15 youth and women.
Okay.
They do production and. So they are employed. Sorry. Network was the problem. Sorry about that. I say 15 youth and women. They are actually directly in production of masks. And of course, we also provide employment to these other indirect people who do the delivery, because like we normally deliver our masks using Safe Border. So we also provide them jobs indirectly. And when you look at all these other people, we also have people who hawk our masks. So we provide quite a number of jobs, indirect jobs to over 50 and above, and then 15 direct people who are engaged in production of masks at our workshops.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Frank. I mean, Elsie, you can see what we're talking about. A young man, youthful guy who's just gone out to try out this, new thing that is happening, making use of the opportunity. And the beauty about it is that he is really doing well. He's employing people, he's making sales. But think about this though. There's so many startups that are youth-led. I mean, if you went to Innovation Village or CoLive Hub or even the Business Incubator, and many of the incubators around town, it's mainly the young people who are starting up these companies and ideas that have been, making it for the last few months or years. But the past 3 months have been very, very straining for many of them. Many of them might not even probably come out of this situation. As the UNDP, what is your solution, Elsie? Youthful Elsie.
No, thank you very much. I think, Frank's, reflections and story really validates exactly what I was talking about, why we have to invest in young people and smart people. He's already created jobs. He's really agile, moved on his feet very quickly. He's connecting with other people, in other countries. I do hope that he also connects to other people in the region. I mean, we do have countries like Togo and Ghana and others also producing masks. So it would be good to do South-to-South cooperation within the region. But now coming back to your question on distress and the fact that many young startups also pretty much fold up quicker. And what are we doing as UNDP? Couple of things. First, we want to use the opportunity of COVID now, and within the UN family, we are doing some work now on the socio-economic assessment of COVID and trying to find out what are the policy recommendations. So it's not only about UNDP, it's going to be a whole ecosystem working with government, private sector. What can we do together as a family to support young people? And this work that is coming out soon, it's going to be very important because it's going to help us to target investments into young people. And so one of the areas certainly that we are helping and supporting as UNDP is to invest in the policy framework, but also invest in programs. So currently as an organization, our own programs, whether it's in the area of environment, in climate, in governance, in agriculture, we are integrating youth work in that. So that's the first thing that I would say we're doing. The second thing, which is very, very important, comrade, and I have to really mention that, is the fact that we need to support young people with innovative financing. It's very, very important. Because, you see Frank, he started his business, he may want to grow his business, it's only 5,000 masks that he wants to do. He may want to do 50,000, 100,000 export to other neighboring countries, but where is the investment going to come from? In a week or two, as UNDP, we are going to launch an innovative challenge. Right. Exactly trying to see where the innovations are, the Francs of today, the Marthas of today, the Walters of today, to apply for that. And to be able to see what kind of innovations can we take to scale, because it's very important. You don't want them to die, just when they are starting to be birthed and to walk. So we want to invest in that by providing grant facilities, but we also want to invest in terms of where we can combine, finance and loans and grants, blended finance, and we are looking at partnership, for example, with Stanbic, which I think is going to be groundbreaking in that sense, where we are targeting youth businesses to invest in. So we are looking at the youth facility. The third thing that I wanted to talk about very, very briefly.
Elsie, so sorry if I could just stop you there. I just want just to really pronounce that that Stanbic collaboration, especially when it comes to the youth and innovation, is a very welcome thing, and it is going to have a massive impact, I think, on the youth and business ecosystem in this country. So you can go on.
Okay, no, fantastic. The other thing I wanted to talk about is in the area of, I may call it incentives. It's an area that we have to look very, very critically, especially fiscal incentives. The taxes, the subsidies is very, very important. Now, you have, for example, the government now is really driving a lot of financing, which is going through the Uganda Development Bank and other entities of the sort. I think for us, what we want to start getting into is how we can use some of these instruments that are available by the country to support young people. Why is it that in some countries we get tax holidays? When an investor comes in from outside, we give them tax holidays. But then when we have investors in countries, we don't give them tax holidays. And I think we need to look at a special sort of instrument, for young people, and to make sure that they are not borrowing at a rate which is exorbitant, which is going to kill their business. And for us as UNDP, some of these areas, when it comes to really helping in terms of creating the fiscal space for young people to be able to operate and nurture and grow their businesses is very, very important. But one more thing that I wanted to talk about is the innovation space. And I know there's a lot of work that is happening there. In UNDP here, we have established what we call an accelerator lab. The accelerator lab is, in very simple terms, a lab that is helping us to rethink and reimagine the future of development. Now, what we want to do is to, we have a youth, I would say, product that is coming out of the accelerator lab very soon, to see how we can continue to help youth pivot their ideas, rethink their strategies in a very systematic way. So, the sense make, they find solutions, they experiment, and then we can be able to invest in some of the experiments that these young people want to do. So even in the innovation ecosystem, it's not enough, it's just enough for you to say, I have an innovation. But how do you grow that innovation? How are you accompanying that process? And we do have this accelerator lab. There are 60 of them globally, 90 now. I think UNDP is expanding with 30 more countries. But Uganda is really one of the ones that is fastest growing. And we are very delighted that we're going to be able to work with the youth in due course. Then finally, I wanted to, the last thing I wanted to talk about, and I want to come back to the example of the Jumia partnership, because we have a number of such product lines lined up. Mm-hmm. Now, what we are doing with this type of work is to integrate the youth in the value chain, which is very, very important. So last Saturday, I sat in the comfort of my house, comrade, and I ordered by the UNDP Jumia app fruits and vegetables to celebrate my mother on Mother's Day. Now, yes. What does it actually mean? Okay, by doing that, I supported the border guy who brought the fruits. So I'm supporting the distribution chain. I'm supporting the young woman, the young man whom I bought from Nakawa market. I'm supporting the farmer who is in the villages somewhere, or the smart rural, farmer, young farmer. And I don't see why young people should not go into farming, because it's the big thing. Right. I've supported that value chain. So it holds such a huge potential for us, especially in the agriculture sector, the agribusiness sector, the trade sector, and bringing the young people into this sort of value chain process by enabling them to be able to sell online through an app that has never been sort of developed. This is the first of its kind, we are told, by Jumia in Ghana, but also in Africa. We are bringing them online. And we're going to be doing similar products, but we are deliberate about bringing young people online when it comes to their small, medium, micro enterprises.
Okay, thank you so much, Elsie. I mean, that is like quite elaborate in terms of your interventions, and I guess they're very timely as well. But I think it's important for us now to also think about how we can have the youth really involved by also looking at their challenges. And this is what we're going to come back with Franc. Franc, we have had this challenge that has been happening for young people when it comes to business. What have been the challenges that you've been facing before, especially in your past business before the masks?
Oh yeah, sure. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tony, for that wonderful question. Mm-hmm. For the last 2 years, because we founded EcoPlastyle in 2018, April. So, but before that, I used to perceive challenges of business in a different perspective. But for the last 2 years, these are some of the challenges that actually we've been encountering. And through my own experience as an African entrepreneur, I now classify these challenges as internal and external challenges. And internal challenges, internal challenges account for over 80% of the challenges that we face as startups, both in Africa and the whole global village. And for the external factors, they only account for 20%. Now, what are some of these internal factors? Now, the internal factors, most of them, one of them is mindset and fear for failure. I personally was a victim for fearing to fail, fearing to start something because maybe the community or the community surrounding me or my social networks are going to look at me as a person who has failed. So this is one of the biggest challenges that we really face as youth. This is getting away from the idea of going for a job in an office somewhere. You decided to become an entrepreneur, and that kind of fear was in there. Exactly, because before that, I was actually working with a certain institution in Western Uganda. I was actually in a senior management position, serving as a director of estates in a university. So how would I really resign my job and go to scavenge for plastic waste? I mean, in slums. So fear and mindset and fear for failure is one of the biggest challenges that most African entrepreneurs face in today's world. And the next challenge that follows mindset and fear for failure is technical expertise. And of course, technical expertise comes, it can be combined with the innovation space. Like Madam Elsie was saying, I really appreciate the efforts of the UNDP for they have put the accelerator labs, and I'm happy to say that our business, EcoPlastyle, is one of the innovations that was selected by the Accelerator Lab for Uganda to participate in solutions for deforestation. So lack of technical expertise and the innovation space for entrepreneurs, especially in Uganda and Africa at large, is another biggest challenge. Because I understand by the time, actually for the last 2 years, I've been interacting with the fellow youth young entrepreneurs across Africa,
Yeah.
I've realized that the youth have innovations. They have wonderful ideas. They have such amazing ideas, and they are willing to work on those ideas. But the
Yeah.
space where together space, the space where they can actually put their ideas and nurture the ideas into sustainable businesses is what is actually a very big hindrance, in addition to mindset and fear for failure. So technical expertise and the innovation space is something that I see that is actually hindering so many innovations out there.
Mm.
We're actually going to lose so many innovations, so many solutions to the market, because they don't have a kind of space where they can really go and nurture their innovations and put them to the market for people to use those solutions. The
That's,
other
yeah.
internal factor, the other internal challenge that I faced as a business at EcoPlastile, we faced with a challenge of having no clear business model. You see, actually, any business in the world is a solution to someone's problem in life. So when your business has no clear business model, like you do not understand who exactly your customers are, what exactly are your key activities as a business, what are the key partnerships you need as a business to grow, what kind of financing do you need, what are the cost structure, the revenue structures, what are key relationships you should be maintaining with your key customers. So I mean, all such kind of things really needs to be put into place as you try to begin a business. And that is one of the key challenges I really find with most of my fellow entrepreneurs, and of course I myself as a startup owner in Uganda. And one of the other the last internal factor that I see internal challenge for entrepreneurs in Uganda is technology adaptation. You see, we are living in an era where technology is disrupting everywhere. Every sector is being actually affected by technology. So and most of the businesses, especially for the youth in Uganda and Africa at large, we are failing to actually adapt to technology. And maybe we have a perception that technology is building that big platform, and forget that using social media to market products, and use Twitter, and connect to people on Slack, and what we are doing exactly right now by communicating on Zoom is technology. So technology is something that is still lacking, especially in African startups, and I think it's a big challenge when it comes to youth businesses in Uganda and Africa at large. So that is part of the internal factors, which I say it contributes to 80% to the challenges of youth businesses in Africa. Now, I need to also talk about the external factors. Now, these external factors, in my own view, they only contribute to 20%. 20% actually of the total challenges that African businesses face. And one of these top on the list is government incentives for youth businesses. I can give an example of a country like Nigeria, just of recent.
But despite them being 20%, I mean, what you just mentioned is a very critical part of the support for SMEs, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they're really. Yeah, they are 20%, but they really contribute critically. Actually, they're very critical to scaling. The 20%, the 80% is looking at beginning a business. You see, when you begin a business, you start a business and reach to a point where maybe the government now, where you are able to attract funding, you're able to attract those key strategic partnerships to help you scale the innovation. So the 20%, the 80% is for the entrepreneur beginning up a business and sustaining it for 1, 2 to 3 years. And then for these 20%, they come in after like 3 to 4 and 10 years, long-term scaling. And one of them is government incentives for youth businesses. Here, what I'm trying to mean is when these youth businesses begin, in most cases, we begin with little capital, frankly to say. We did not have too much capital to begin with, compete with these other big investors in the country and the world at large. So the fact that the youth begin with a very minimal capital So they should be really enjoying incentives from the government, like tax holidays, and receiving some kind of grants, to support them and support their businesses reach to a point where they are able to attract funding and become investment ready. And the other biggest challenge, the other external factor is affordable and innovative financing. Like Madam Elsie said, it's a very it's a huge challenge. In fact, when I was beginning, but what I want to make clear to everyone who is viewing this event is that financing is not the most important aspect of running a business.
I always say that.
Yes, if a young entrepreneur or you a practicing entrepreneur and you think financing is all you need to run a business, they can give you money today and tomorrow you don't have anything. So financing is really important, and it should really find you at a state where you have tested the market. You already know what your customers need, and you just need that kind of financing to help you scale your product and take it and serve a bigger market, make a huge impact and stuff like that. So, so innovative, affordable financing is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing, and I think maybe institutions like the UNDP and its family, and of course the government, they are really doing a great job to make sure that they support youth through quite a number of programs that actually avail funds to youth to enable them run ventures. And of course, the last part I would talk about is transformative partnerships. You see, when you're in most cases, especially like African businesses, but in the case of Ugandan businesses, we've found a challenge. Like I would give a case actually of my business, Ecoplaster. When we were beginning, we didn't have any single partner on board, but we've like, it's been a very long journey to attract partners, transformative partners, both technical, financial, and business involvement. And when it comes to financial partners, of course, like we say, financing is a very big challenge. But of course, what makes you as a true entrepreneur is you to figure out how possible you can tap into those opportunities that come to support innovations around the country and the whole globe at large. And of course, like when we look at business involvement as part of transformative partnerships, these are really very key to enable the businesses actually become investment ready, because this business involvement like this provide actually they provide forms of mentorship. They provide the mentors, and they actually enable you to access the market, and linking you to other fellow entrepreneurs who think the same way you think. So I think that is really very, very important. And,
so the external bits are really, really crucial. I mean, describing 20%, they're very, very crucial. And this is where I get back to, because Elsie, those external bits I think are really critical to your interventions, because one, your area or your interest as well is employment. How many youth are getting employed? How many opportunities are being created by a lot of these enterprises? But again, two, access to financing. How are you making it easy for these entrepreneurs to actually access this funding? Someone actually on Facebook sent a question which was in the line of funding, and his question was very, very direct to the point. This is Muta from Facebook asking, what is the UNDP and doing to support government and the banks in helping youth to access lower costs of funding for their SMEs?
All right, so if I get started on that response, maybe if I may just permit me to talk a bit about what Franc said, because I think it's very important on the internal and external sort of challenge. And I think both feed into each other and they are closely interlinked. A few points in there. I think it's very important that we provide leadership to young people. I mean, fear of failure, yes, even if you fail, and so what? I mean, you carry on. So we need to be able to provide that leadership and mentor them as we move forward, mentoring, capacity building. And I think some of the some of the instruments available, including Stanbic's own incubator hubs and for businesses, where we want to partner with you to see how we can bring young people into the fold and try to take them systematically through business processes, business models, mindset change, leadership, and all that. I think becomes very, very key. And I recall and a very important point where a young man in Ghana told me, look, I just want to be able to sell what you call pocho here and tilapia.
Yeah.
The guy makes $10,000 a month in the streets of Accra, but the family feels that you cannot go to university and be doing this kind of work. You see? And so society also needs to change their mindset to support young people who want to do things that are different. If you want to collect garbage, and so be it, it's a multi-million-dollar industry. Now, coming back to the question on how are we supporting young people access financing? A couple of things. One, we are entering into strategic partnerships with a number of banks. One of them certainly being the Stanbic Bank, where what we are offering is to be able to buy down the risk, in a way that the sort of loan that they may give to a traditional SME, we will cushion that when it comes to young people, so the cost of financing then comes down. So that's one practical way, and I'm very delighted that we are very advanced in our conversations with Stanbic. But so other banks also in the country, we are having these conversations with them. Like I said earlier on, we do have conversations as well, and we do actually have a partnership, which is quite not only Uganda, regional level UNDP partnership with also Tony Otoa, where we are also providing grant financing to support young businesses, and that's something that we continue to do. At the continental level, one of the things that our regional director wants to do, and we're very delighted about, is also to create a fund just for young people to be able to access and to grow their businesses, entrepreneurship, and all that. So that's a big thing offering that UNDP is coming up with. Outside here in Uganda, like I said, we're going to launch the innovative grant facility. We are going to launch, other instruments with partners. We're going to make sure that in our own programs that we implement through our country programs, we dedicate money. So be it our climate change portfolios, like I said, be it our governance portfolio, resilience portfolio, we always have micro grants. We have even instruments which we call, for example, results-based payments, where if a young person can demonstrate to us that this was my baseline in 2010, in 2020, this is what the result I've achieved, we can also pay them, monies that they have invested before, which by showing us the results they have achieved. So we're coming out with very, very interesting packages in that regard. And I think most importantly, coming back to the fiscal space, we want to work closely with government, with the international financial institutions like the World Bank, IMF, and others, the African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, who actually contributed substantial financing during this COVID period to government. But then how can we bring the young people to access financing in a cheaper way? Working with the Ministry of Gender, Youth, and others to make sure that we can be able to deploy with wider UN family resources that can be very targeted and strategic, supporting young people. So that's how I think I want to respond to the question that was posted on Facebook.
Right. Now, let me get back to Franc. As a business, if I asked you as a youth, what support would you need to make you scale, to make you employ more people, to make you more creative, to be able to do more? What support would you need? Beyond just talking about the development partners, but support that you think would help you grow your business.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tony, for that wonderful question. I think to just cut it very short, support is, every business, of course, requires support for scaling and stuff like that. And in our case for EcoPlastyle, are you trying to mean in our cases EcoPlastyle or generally as businesses?
Generally as youth businesses. I want us to have the bigger picture. Yeah, sure. Because I mean, you're coming from that very good demographic.
Fantastic. Yeah, sure. Importantly is one of the biggest things that actually youth businesses need. The first is an enabling environment. So what do I mean when I say an enabling environment? So this enabling environment is where the government and its partners, like the government, is able to put in place incentives for youth businesses to thrive. And of course, the other enabling environment also looks at the private sector. It's not only about the government itself, but it's also about the private sector. And when you look at the private sector, when you look at the private sector, how does the private sector encourage these young businesses to actually begin and become sustainable in a way that they are able to make impact and scale and become large companies. So an enabling environment is something that is really very critical for any business to actually become successful.
Right.
The other support that is really very key is mentorship and connecting. Mentorship and connecting entrepreneurs to fellow entrepreneurs. There is a saying that says that birds of the same feathers flock together. So when entrepreneurs get to be together, they get to share their challenges as young entrepreneurs. They get to share experiences and learn from each other's mistakes, their failures and experiences. And that is really very, very important. They even get to get feedback about their startups, get feedback about their products and services. And we understand feedback is very, very important for any startup, because you cannot actually grow and scale a business if you do not receive feedback. So it is really very important that that we have an enabling environment that actually connect these entrepreneurs to share experiences, learn from their mistakes and successes, and get feedback, and then grow from the feedbacks received from their fellow entrepreneurs.
But let me ask you something, Franc. Do you think, or in your perspective, has COVID also shaped some of these answers that you're giving? Because I do not know if they are the same issues or the same support you would have needed 3 months ago. Has COVID done any or had an impact on you, on how things are going?
Oh yeah, sure. Because you see, with COVID-19, of course, I think COVID-19 is here to teach us about technology, adapting to technology. Because we are still doing business. If it is trading, we are still trading. If it's production, we are still producing. But how we do production is what is actually defining. The methodology of doing business is what is actually becoming different. So the most important, I think there is no much actually difference from what has been happening and what should be happening now, especially in the business world. I'm not talking about in the employment world. I'm talking about the business world. Apart from seeing countries like enforcing lockdowns, sort of lockdowns, and of course going into quarantine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The way we do business, COVID-19 is here has actually taught us and is teaching us to embrace technology by making sure that we look at how we can offer our services and deliver our products differently from how we've been doing it. And that means you have to look at integrating technology in your business processes, whether it is marketing, whether it is delivery, whether it is operations and stuff like that. So of course, previously, if you asked me what support I would need, most of what I've said would be some of what I've said actually would be some of the things I would actually need as a business previously. So I think COVID-19 just now needs us to adapt to technology and do things differently from what we've been doing previously.
Okay, so we're just going to close this now, but I'm just going to close by asking my guests, Elsie and Franc, to just give me 2 parting shots, because for Elsie, I think the youth out there want to know 2 things. First of all, what is the criteria for a youth-led business? What is the criteria to use? Because many people would want to see how they can come and get involved in the support. But also, 2, how soon could these possible interventions happen? And then for Franc, I think you've really elaborated so much. And I must say that a lot of what you've said is actually what has been coming up as a lot of the questions that we've been receiving. But Elsie, that's the magic question. What is a youth?
All right, I'm very excited. So permit me to just be a bit more bubbly. Before I just come back to 2 questions very quickly, and I just wanted to tie in a bit with what Frank said. In the mentoring side of things, which I also mentioned, I think it's important that perhaps SME Connect and other partners begin to do the linkages and the pairing with the different mentors. I think that's very important. The second thing is for us to start curating the story. Africans are not very good at curating our own story. So how does this businessman make it? What were the triggers? What were the challenges? What were the opportunities? What did he do or she do? I think let's start curating the story from a knowledge management point of view. And then finally, I think we need to do some more skilling, digital skilling. If everything is going online, for example, how are you going to trade much more effectively and grow your business? Now, coming back to the question on, so what kind of business is a good business? I think for me, there is no fast and hard rule. What I'll be looking for in a good business is that what are we trying to achieve? What is the solution that we are providing to a development challenge, for example? I think that is very important in terms of the solution mindedness of that idea, in terms of supporting a development opportunity, but also the capacity of that thing to reach people at scale, particularly people who are vulnerable and who need support, the young people, the women, the elderly, the people with disability. For us in the UN, we talk about leave no one behind. So I'll be looking with my eyes very quickly on some of these things. I think for me, the second thing is how we reimagine the future from now. It's very, very important. We can't keep on doing the old thing where we are driving all over with pollution. We are not building smart cities, How are we going to build better post-COVID period? And any idea that a youth person has, which helps us to shape the future of Uganda, the destiny of Uganda, for us to achieve our Vision 2040, I think that's something I'll be looking at in terms of the capacity of that idea to help us reimagine development. But otherwise, I think every idea has the potential to bring some magnificent change, transformational change, structural change, and I think we have to look very closely and be able to support young people to take the ideas forward.
Thank you so much, Elsie. I don't know, do they say Madase?
Madase means yes, thank you.
Exactly, thank you very much for coming on to today's SME show. Frank, thank you so much for coming on. You're really inspiring, and that is the kind of conversation we need to be having from a lot of young people out there. I think what you have demonstrated is that crisis or times of crisis always produce opportunity, and you've jumped into the opportunity and you've shown people, especially the youth, it's possible. So thank you so much for coming and joining us on the SME Connect. And we look forward to coming and visiting your businesses at the other SME Connects. But Frank, you want to say something?
Yeah, just one thing. I just wanted to say one thing to the viewers is that actually most of the successful businesses you see around the world emerged out of a crisis. So every crisis that comes presents different opportunities. And the quicker you become to respond and pivot and build solutions and take them to the market for testing is what defines a true entrepreneur. Otherwise, everyone can be an entrepreneur, and we need those solutions. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Frank. Thank you so much, Elsie. And we look forward to taking you on our SME Connect journey when we start going around the country, looking at businesses and seeing how they're coming out of this COVID and also how we can support them. Good evening and thank you.
I'll be delighted to come back again. Thank you for the opportunity.
Pleasure. Cheers.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us on this amazing SME Connect event. We have been very privileged to partner with Cloud Core for this event, for this episode rather, today. And I think it has been a very, very brilliant one where we're looking at youth and how we can support them out of this. Like I said from the beginning, we have been talking about the effects of COVID. Now we want to see the solutions. We want to seek the solutions and provide the solutions. That's what we've been talking about today. So thank you so much for joining us on the SME Connect.